I'm talking about, the African Cup of Nations 2027 edition going to, the joint bid of Kenya, Uganda, as well as Tanzania. Now, joining me in the studio is Larry Eghosa, who is a sports analyst. Larry, it's good to have you on the show this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Samson. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. Let me get your thoughts quickly concerning the announcement by CAF yesterday. Were you surprised, and what do you make of the host nations for the 2025 and 2027 editions?
Well, not surprised at all. Morocco they are very well equipped when it comes to hosting. We've seen them do very well in CHAN competitions, and as far as facilities are concerned, you have to rank them very highly alongside nations like Egypt and, of course, South Africa when it comes to the African continent. Then don't forget also that they are bidding to host the World Cup in 2030. So this looks like a dress rehearsal for them to show their mettle in the African continent, and then, look how they can improve, when it comes to the big one 5 years later. So I'm not surprised at all. However, the surprise one, as you mentioned earlier, was the 2027, which I thought, should have come to Nigeria on a platter, saying that we haven't even hosted since 2000, if I'm not mistaken, which was even a joint bid. But for Morocco, I think it was quite deserved.
Quickly, before we move away from there, because we would need to move to East Africa and hear what the Tanzanians are saying about this great and historic feat for them. The last time an East African nation hosted the African Cup of Nations was way back as in 1976, and that was Ethiopia. But quickly, for the Pamoja bid, there were skepticism concerning this, and that's quite understandable considering of the three nations, the only CAF and FIFA accredited stadium has to be the Benjamin Mkapa Stadium in Tanzania. Kenya doesn't have any stadium up to standard. The same thing with Uganda. And that was the cloud that overshadowed the bid, the Pamoja bid itself. Now, quickly, do you think within 4 years these nations will be able to meet up in terms of preparations, having the best of facilities, so that we can have the very best of the 2027 edition of the African Cup of Nations?
Well, that's an interesting question because as far as I'm concerned, before you even put in any bid for hosting any competition, especially as big as the biggest football competition in the whole of Africa, you should be halfway prepared. But given what we have from these Eastern nations, with due respect to them, they are very well equipped as far as hosting is concerned. Well, 3 years is a long time for them to put their acts together. But as you mentioned earlier, as you alluded to, the CAF president, made it clear that as much as possible, it should go to as many nations as possible. 3 years is a long time, but it's also a very short time. The good news is, looking at Morocco, for instance, Morocco will be hosting it in 6 cities, in 6 stadiums, basically. And so it means that each of these nations basically have to just produce 2 good or good enough stadiums, or 3 at most, to host this. Given that it's a joint contribution from these 3 nations, I think they can just about pull it off. But ideally, I think they should be halfway prepared, or at least they should have started a considerable process of hosting the African Cup of Nations before they even put in for any bid.
Okay, I would see how that pans out, especially for the 3 nations, as preparations will now be in top gear to ensure that they host the very best of the African Cup of Nations come 2027. We know quite well that when it comes to infrastructure, Morocco is leading the way on the continent when it comes to football infrastructure. Now let's move to East Africa. Tanzanians are happy, they're rejoicing, they're excited about this historic hosting right that they've achieved, and they have so much to say concerning the Pamoja bid. Okay, let's turn our attention now to the Nigerian Premier Football League. It's about to kick off, and Aqua United, one of the clubs rather, and the 2021 champions, did unveil new jerseys ahead of the new season. And it's quite intriguing because oftentimes the call has been that clubs should, live up to standard in terms of doing things the right way, just like their European counterparts. That's one of the ways we can grow the league. And for Aqua United, they did just that by unveiling their jerseys ahead of the new season. It was quite colorful. And the chairman of the club, Paul Bassi, who is a veteran sports journalist and administrator, had something to say as well concerning Aqua United's jersey unveiling ahead of the new 2023-2024 season.
It's necessary for us to unveil our new jersey. I don't know what happens in football culture all over the world. Teams change their jerseys for one reason or another, no matter how good you think that jersey is. Because even within the club, we've had instances where our kit supplier sends us new design. People say, why must we change? This jersey is very nice. But that is the culture. You have to continue changing. We thought it would be unfair for us to start the league using our new jersey without introducing that jersey to stakeholders in the states. That is how, and that is why this event is rolling today. I want to thank those who have come at short notice. So here we are for the unveiling of the jersey for the season. The way we do it, when at the end of the season, the man sends us several designs and colors and everything. So we pass it through the club, through our platform, and people choose. You know, they choose and so on. This one was unanimous.
A unanimous choice right there. Larry, we know it's always a big deal for European clubs when they unveil jerseys. Yeah. Fans are always looking forward to this, jersey unveiling and how they can lay their hands on replica, kits as well. Now, this is a Nigerian club side, towing that line, doing it the right way. They are not the first, but this is highly commendable, it must be said. And when we talk about ensuring that the league, the Nigerian Premier Football League, lives up to standard, especially considering its South African or Egyptian, counterparts. I think this is the right way to go in terms of club administration.
Yeah, you can say that again, Samson. I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day, so we don't expect perfection in one day, but this is a good way to go, as you alluded to. You don't just start the season, with new jerseys without the fans knowing about it, as the chairman mentioned, and I think this is quite commendable. It didn't mention anything about the availability, where fans can order it from, and all that. Bound to believe that that must be put in place, because it's not just enough to unveil it; it's also very necessary to make it available so that people can shop for it, they can shop for it, online, and even at their stadium. So it's a good way to go. It's a good it's a good improvement on what they have been doing in the past, and I mean, this can also be a means of generating funds for the clubs.
Exactly, the commercial angle is very key, because fans will be able to lay their hands on the replica jersey. And I like the fact that I said when the designs came through from the manufacturers, they had to get the opinion of everyone, and it was unanimous. In other words, every stakeholder did approve of the jersey. It's colorful, and let's hope that they put on colorful performances on the field of play. That's the most important thing. I can recall Derby County had probably the most beautiful jersey, if you want to call it that, during the 2006-07 English Premier League season. We know how that ended. They finished with 13 points and got relegated. So we'll wish them the very best, talking about Aqua United, as the Nigerian Premier Football League kicks off this weekend. Now let's turn our attention to North Africa, talking about the best of football in the Egyptian Premier League. There will definitely be matches to play today. And we had matches as well yesterday in the Egyptian Premier League. The results are NP played out a stalemate against El Gesh, and you had El Ghouta losing at home to ZFC by a lone goal. Matches to expect in the Egyptian Premier League later today. You have Al Masry against Fako FC, Ismaili SC against Al Ittihad Alexandria. Those are matches you should expect in the Egyptian Premier League. Staying with North Africa, let's turn our attention to the Morocco Botola Pro League. The result from yesterday, USM Alger defeated Pardo AC away from home by a lone goal. Still staying with North Africa, in Algeria, you had match results as well. South Africa, I beg your pardon, let's move to South Africa now. And in South Africa, you had Kaizer Chiefs winning at home against Shekone United by 2-1. Mamelodi Sundowns defeated Stellenbosch by 3-1. thereby, smashing the record of Kaizer Chiefs. The big question is, can anyone stop Mamelodi Sundowns this season? They look like they're running away with the league title once again, and probably will do it in record time in terms of record haul points as well. Well, that's a wrap of African football. We'll take a breather right now. When we return, we'll turn our attention to the Carabao Cup in England. Please to stay with us. Thanks for staying tuned. This is In the Game, and I'm Samson Oloyede. Larry Eghosa is still here with me, and it's now time to turn our attention to the European scene. You had the Carabao Cup, known as the EFL Cup in England, and for Chelsea Football Club, it was the first goal of the month of September. Very ridiculous, you want to say, a start for a club as big as Chelsea, having to go all the way through 28 days before scoring. But they did score their first goal of the month, and it was enough to get them the win over Brighton over Albion. Nicholas Jackson as well as Chelsea have gotten all the sticks they can get this season. But finally, a goal did come in September, and it was just enough to get Chelsea over the finish line against Brighton Hove Albion, and they are through to the next round. Larry, quickly, first goal coming 28 days into the month of September. Yeah. You want to say ridiculous, but that those would also say we had the international break in between. Chelsea Football Club has struggled this season, no doubt about it. Will this be the start of a new season for them?
Highly unlikely, quite honestly. There's nothing to suggest that because the struggle didn't just start from this season. Last summer, they set a record of over £300 million spent by any team in history of football. They followed that up this time with another manager, in the winter, setting another winter outlay as far as spending is concerned. And this season, they didn't even stop at that. They continue to spend. So the struggle has started from last season, spanning 1, 2, 3 managers already. And you just ask yourself, what exactly is wrong? Sitting right here now, it's honestly very, very difficult to pinpoint anything in particular. But if anything, they've changed lots of managers, they've changed lots of players, and they just have to be patient. I think that's one thing, that might work out to say, come, I haven't changed, I haven't, tweaked so many things. How about we just be patient and allow a manager, have a free ride. This season is just basically going to be experimental. Just allow the manager, Pochettino, who is quite experienced, not just, in England, but also in other leagues as well, to say, hey, why not just have your time, tinker with this squad and let's see what you can offer. Because sitting right here now is really, really difficult to pinpoint anything that's responsible. And to suggest or to ask whether this is the beginning of good times for Chelsea, I'm sorry, Chelsea fans, I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Okay, I would say we know quite well that Brighton did have the chances as well in the game, and Sanchez did come strong, making clutch saves at some point to just keep them in the game. We'll see if Chelsea can build from this, but they need to really pile up the winning streak to get out of the lower table right now in the Premier League standings. Now let's still talk about the Carabao Cup. Liverpool Football Club defeated Leicester by 3-1. It looks like another routine win, but when you consider the fact that Leicester City this season have won 6 games away from home in all competitions, you know quite well that this was a difficult task for Liverpool. Larry, Liverpool are under the radar, so to speak. Yes, they may be second on the log in the Premier League, but no team at this point in time has the record Liverpool has in England. 17 matches unbeaten from last season into this season. Let's talk about Liverpool and their form. Is this the start of Jurgen Klopp's best team 2.0, if you want to call it?
You can say that, but I wouldn't be so sure. The reason is at the start of last season, don't forget, they lost the league 2 seasons ago just in the last, 10 minutes, or some will even tell you 8 minutes, because City eventually went ahead of Aston Villa 3-2 around 82 minutes or thereabout, which meant that Liverpool were it looked like they could win their second league title, in just 3 years. But last season was appalling, because as much as many people thought they were going to rival City, or even maybe a few people thought they were slight favorites to go in to win the league, given how the previous season panned out. They had their worst season in so many years, managing to just finish in the Europa League places. But this time they've picked themselves up really well. The midfield is completely changed now, bringing in new players, and the attack is a little changed, but with Salah still being there, they still have a few experience. They've done very well for themselves. 5 wins and 1 draw in the Premier League, one of the few sides who are unbeaten in all competitions in the whole of Europe this season. Will it be a new phase? Difficult to say. I thought the first phase was over with Mane, Firmino, the likes of Salah, Henderson. You can mention so many players, who were a fulcrum to that first phase. This time, can they rebuild from the scratch? I think it will need time. They've started really well. It looks like they will make the top 4. I'm not really sure they will compete, even though they've started really well. But 17 games unbeaten in all competitions from last season is a very good way to start. And given how they have started this season as well, grinding out results, coming from behind to beat teams, who they already would have drawn to last season, or even lost, on occasions as they did last season, is very, very impressive. Will they be able to sustain it? Time will tell. But I think if they just about finish in top 4 places this season, I think next season they can very well build on it and probably compete for the league.
Okay, just before we leave England, we have to talk about Manchester City. Surprising result, but not so surprising as well, considering it's Newcastle United, another top side. They've not started the season so well, but are coming off the back of an 8-0 thumping of Sheffield United, and they were able to get it past Manchester City. Alexander Isak scoring the only goal for City. How disappointing was this loss and exit from the Carabao Cup?
Well, I wouldn't say very disappointing, given who the manager is and what their top targets are. If you look at the 4 trophies up for grabs, the Champions League, the Premier League, of course, the FA Cup, as well as the Carabao Cup, I think we all agree that the Carabao Cup is the least as far as the rankings are concerned. And I think, exiting quite early last season also helped them. Remember, they got kicked out by Southampton in the quarterfinal, which meant that they needed to just rest their, what many people don't know, but is a very small squad small pool of players, albeit quality players, you know, on the Champions League, the Premier League, and the FA Cup, which helped them a lot. So I think given the nature of the Carabao Cup, my opinion is, or my idea is, if you're not going to win it, just get out as soon as possible so that you rest your legs on the other competitions. And they have been plagued with lots of injuries this season, you know, from midfield to attack. You can add suspension and all that to it. So if they are going to exit at this point against Newcastle 1-0, you know, an odd goal in a game they practically dominated, I don't think they'll be too disappointed. Right now, they can put their focus on the Premier League, which they will want to win. It will be the 4th consecutive if they go ahead to win it. The only team to do that in the Premier League era. The Champions League, can they want to, you know, retain it like Real Madrid did a few minutes ago, and of course to stamp their authority in European football. The FA Cup is still very much there as well. So I think that if they look back at the end of the season, if they have done well, if they have managed to clinch, if they manage to clinch 2 or 3 of these trophies, you know, yeah, I think they'll look back to say, hey, that was just the Carabao Cup. But if they manage to win just the FA Cup, which is a list of the remaining 3, then they might look back to say, hey, we probably should have held this down as well. But overall, it's Manchester City. They'll be good for the Premier League. They'll compete favorably for the Champions League, and they'll be favourite for the FA Cup. So I don't think they will look back at this and cry too much.
Okay, we'll see how that pans out. It means the elusive quadruple is still on, because no one has come close to winning that Liverpool did 2 seasons ago, having won the Carabao Cup and FA Cup. They got to the Champions League final, lost to Real Madrid, and on the final day of the Premier League title, they also lost the league title by a point. So if anyone has really come close to the quadruple, it was Liverpool 2 seasons ago.